we have these values, we have these guidelines, we have these rules, and we automatically think that our kids are going to fit all those things. And so when they don't, well, then we try to exert that force, that pressure, and that's the mistake I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We think we have some sort of control over all that.
Yeah.
We really don't.
What's up? Welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. We have a special guest with us today. Blake Nelson is the executive director at Heartlight Ministries. Blake's been at Heartlight for 30 years. What they do and what they are is a residential counseling facility for troubled youth, ages 13 to 17. They can house around 60 kids per year. They come in and run through a program with them, with kids that are just struggling, and Blake can go over more of that with us. You've had a lot of experience with troubled teens over the years.
I'd say so.
There's been over 3,000 that have come through the program since its inception.
Yes.
So my first question for you, Blake, is what is the dumbest thing that Christian parents do to mess their kids up?
Oh, wow. Jump right into it.
We're getting right in, dude.
Dive in head first.
Here we go. There's a lot of ways to go with that. I think Christian parents are hard, and we're a Christian ministry. So most of the families we get, they're Christian families, great people, great kids. But probably to answer your question, probably the biggest thing is the thinking that they have more control than they do.
What makes a parent or Christian parent specifically feel like they have more control than they actually do? What have you seen?
Being a Christian man, husband, father, we have a set of values we try to live by. We have a guide, if you will.
Right.
And I think, you're a dad. Assume you're a dad also. Like, when you start doing this, you have these ideas of, well, we have a guide. We have some already rules, if you will, set out. And we have an obligation. Hey, we want to raise our kids a certain way. And that's really, really great until they hit those teen years. And they it's kind of like giving, that old movie Gremlins, when you give them water after midnight. That's what teens are.
Who knew we were going to go into a Gremlins reference? Like, you got to be at least 40 to have a clue.
To even know what Gremlins is.
Yes.
Hey, you got to be a certain age.
That's right.
You know, showing my age
We're
a little
experienced here, Bubba.
But, we have these values, we have these guidelines, we have these rules, and we automatically think that our kids are going to fit all those things. And so when they don't, well, then we try to exert that force, that pressure to get them to do that. And we think we can control all those different things. And I think one of the things I've even learned is, when you realize you don't really have control, then you have to rely on something. That something to us is a relationship, because we feel if you don't have a relationship with your kid, you really don't have any platform to stand on. You just become a policeman or a sheriff or whatever you will, and kids don't respond to that these days. It's way different than when we grew up.
So they don't respond to just the hard-nosed parenting that a lot of us grew up with. Like, you're going to do what I say because I told you to.
Right.
Because I said so.
How many times, these days, we didn't really question it. My dad would say, hey, you're going to do this, and I'd say, yes, sir. And when I turned around, I would mumble and grumble under my breath and say all kinds of things, but I still did it.
Right.
It's not the same these days.
Why do you think?
Take a look around the country. When we grew up, you respected really everybody. You respected that coach in your life. You respected those teachers. You respected the law. You respected the president.
It was positional leadership. It was like, this person is in this position, and my parents have taught me to respect adults, period.
Yes, and all those people were usually respectable. It's not the same today.
Yeah, you question authenticity.
look at how people view cops these days. Not the same.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so that authority is not the same.
Makes total sense. Do you feel like that has a lot to do with the programming of social media, television? Where do you think it stems from?
Man, I'm probably not as big on all the social media stuff as maybe I should be or other people are. I just think there's been a total shift in everybody's mindset. I mean, if I had to look at it, I'd go, it's our fault.
Yeah, it's our generation's fault.
It's our fault.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, yes, we have new elements that have come in, social media, cell phones, but they're very useful tools too. It's not all bad.
Oh no, there's a lot of good.
And so when you start talking about that, it's only bad because we're not teaching our kids how to really use it
Right.
well. What we do, I mean, we're the ones that at 9, 10, 11 years old, we're handing them a computer, a smartphone, and saying, hey, here
A
you go.
supercomputer.
Because everybody else has it, and we don't want them to feel left out. That's that need for connection and
right.
relationship.
That's good.
And it's a way for us to connect, to know what our kids are doing, where they're at, and be in touch. And because we didn't grow up with them, well, we don't know how to use them. I mean, my first iPhone, my oldest was 10. She set it up for me. She had never touched a phone before.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And we're handing them these things, and then we're playing catch up. It's not that yes, there's bad things. Yes, there's all kinds of access. And you have to learn, you have to train them how to do that, because at some point, they're going to leave your home. And if they haven't learned and they don't know, then it's crazy.
Yeah. Let's talk about Heartlight for a minute.
Sure.
Heartlight is the residential facility for troubled teens where they come live on your property, right?
Yeah, they come spend about a year with us.
Okay. What are some scenarios, like why would a kid need to be pulled out of their environment, their home, away from their family to come? Like, how extenuating is that to make it to where this kid's got to go here and stay here for 9 months, a year, 15 months, however long?
Simply because nothing else is working. I mean,
Last resort?
Last resort. Probably half of our kids would tell you if they didn't come to Heartlight, they'd be in jail or dead.
Wow.
And so when you start talking about, the spot that a family gets in, it's a spot of desperation. They've tried everything. They've read everything. They've done everything, and the kid's just not responding to any of it. And so we tell families, we have resources and different things that we can talk about later, but when you've tried everything and it's still not working, call us.
Okay. You guys, so you have resources to try to help families before they get to that point?
We do.
Okay.
ParentingToday'steens.org. Mark Gregston, our founder.
Which
Podcast.
he'll be on the show in a couple weeks.
Podcast, radio, have books, all sorts of things. We even have conferences at Heartlight that we do throughout the year to try to help families never have to come to Heartlight.
So you mentioned the pride issue earlier, the control issue earlier, is that parents, there's this level of how you raise a kid from ages, we're just going to generalize here, from 0 to 12.
Sure.
And then after that, in their teenage years, that changes, but we as parents have a hard time shifting that. What are some of the biggest obstacles? Because you talk to parents, correct?
I do.
What are some of the biggest obstacles that they have to transition their thinking? And then what are some of those transitional thinking ideas that you guys teach?
Good question.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna give you an analogy.
Okay.
I don't know these days, but we've all taught our kids to ride a bike, and it started by having a bike on training wheels. No big deal. Well, eventually they have to they grow out of that, want to learn how to ride a bike on their own. So what do? As a dad, you grab the handlebars and the back of the seat, right? You walk next to them. You let them get the feel of it, and eventually you start kind of loosening your grip to see if they can do that. True.
Right.
Y'all
Yes.
done that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Bunch of times.
So as they get more and more comfortable and you're running alongside of them, you know what? Eventually you're going to let them go, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And eventually what's going to happen?
Crash and burn, baby.
Crash and burn is exactly right. They're going to eat it.
Yep.
And so how many of you, when they ate it, ran over there, stood over them, pointed your finger in their face, and told them how dumb they were? Look, but
Never did that one.
no, you never did. What you did is you scooped them up.
Oh, man, that's good.
You tended to their boo-boos.
Yeah.
And what? You put them back on the bike. And this is going to be a picture of parenting. So the 0 to 12 years old, we're holding the bike. We're letting them get the feel of it. And as they get to those teen years, we got to start letting go. And we got to let them feel how to maneuver this thing called life.
And fail.
Knowing what?
That they're going to mess up.
They're going to crash and burn. And when they do as teens, our typical reaction is to run over there, stand over them, point your finger in the face, and tell them how dumb they are.
Yes.
I'm dying over
So
here,
true,
man.
because
It
it's so
is.
true. Yeah.
It is. Why is that our natural reaction?
Because we think that they can think like we do.
Okay.
And if you get scientific, and I'm not,
Yeah.
I have no expertise in that.
Yeah, okay.
But what I do know is that brains develop.
Yeah.
Okay. And our teenagers, my youngest is 18. She doesn't have the ability to think like I do because her brain's not fully developed yet. But
Right.
yet our expectation is that they can, and that they should know everything that we know. And there's no way for that unless we transfer that wisdom to
That's
them.
right. It's our
That-
job.
Our job to train them. That's the difference.
Patiently over a long period of time.
Over a long period of time, knowing there's going to be mistakes. We as Christian families hate that our kids make mistakes because we then feel it says something about us.
It's a reflection.
Yeah.
A reflection.
That's funny. So if you're a perfectionist, like a lot of alpha male OCD entrepreneurs, right? I mean, we expect our kids to be perfect, and
But how many mistakes have we made
It's not happening.
starting and running businesses?
thousands?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah.
And what
that's
do we tell ourselves? Like, you have. One thing I've been working on is like giving myself grace. Like,
Yeah.
like almost giving myself pep talks. Like, hey, bud, it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You don't
But-
feel good today. You don't want to work. Like,
Yeah.
move through it.
But we have a hard time doing that to our kids when our
Yeah.
kids make mistakes. We are very good at teaching them a lesson, telling them what they need to do, what they should do, how they should do it different. But we have a very hard time saying, hey, bud, it's going to be okay. I love you.
yeah,
So I'm sure there's parents out there thinking, well, like if I just let them make all their decisions right, and if I guide this bicycle and then I let it go, what if they make one of the big mistakes, like they try drugs that are laced with something, or they have sex and get pregnant, or like those things? What if a parent's worried about that? What do you tell them?
Well, I think we're all worried about that.
Yeah.
I mean, because those are decisions that any kid could make at any time. And to me, we'll get a little maybe controversial, but that's where faith comes in too. I can't rely on all these scriptures and verses and promises from God when it feels good. If I'm going to say, hey, I trust in God, then I got to trust in God when I don't feel good, when I don't have those answers, when it's scary. And that's hard.
that is so true, man. That is so difficult for it's been difficult for me to do, and then especially like my middle daughter, whenever she left to go to Texas Tech about nearly 2 years ago, and I just remember just wanting to ride in the car with her and wanting, and I was just like, I got to let her go, man. And
Soaking up them
yeah,
last
and
moments.
just and I remember praying like the first night that she left, and for God's provision over her life, and just having this peace come over my entire body about, like just knowing that, hey, I've done the best that I feel like I could do, and it's time for me to allow God to kind of take the driver's seat now.
Yeah, and I'll step in. You never allowed God to.
Right. Oh, yeah.
He always was.
Oh, I
there
was always the
doing it.
helicopter parent.
But that's how we think, and that's the mistake I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We think we have some sort of control over all that.
Yep.
We really don't.
Yep.
So what are you focusing on? What are you, as the executive director of Heartlight, and what are you training your staff to focus on? Obviously, there's programs, right? You guys have a filtered program of how kids excel on levels and stuff like
Sure.
that. What's your focus? What's your
Relationships.
Okay.
Like we're chasing after the heart of this kid, who they are, and building a relationship. I mean, one of our staple statements is you have to earn the right to be heard.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
So I fall into this. We all have. We have this idea because I'm dad that immediately both of my daughters should just automatically respect me, and I have that floor just because I'm dad. It's not always true. And so if I'm not seeking after them, seeking that relationship, they're not going to listen to a word I have to say.
What are some practical tips that you can give parents today, right now, if they don't feel like they've got a teen, they don't feel like they have a relationship with that teen? If they don't feel that way, they probably don't. How can you start to create, mend, build that relationship today?
So I always relate it like if we just met, you and I, which we've known each other for a long time. But if we just met, I would ask you lots of questions to find out who you are, what you like, what your interests are, a lot of things, what your family's like.
You're asking me as the parent?
I am,
Okay.
but what I'm saying is we don't, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this as well. We think we already know what our kids think, feel, like, dislike, and we base that a lot on decisions they made when they were 8 years old. Their favorite color may have changed from blue to red in a period of 4 years, but we don't know that if we never ask.
It's very simple but profound.
We spend so much time on performance type things, and I found I had to catch myself with my youngest. She was a great volleyball player in high school.
I'll attest to that. She was awesome. If you're watching, you're awesome.
Great volleyball player. And I would make a point that when we would get home or just having just conversations, we would talk about the game. She was a very hard critic on herself. I never pointed out those things. But what I would say is, hey, but I love how you're a great teammate. I love how you treat people, because that speaks to who she is, not what she's doing. And so we get really focused on grades or whether or not they can do chores well or this or that. And we spend a lot of time because you have to.
A lot of it now is that performance-based in the sports that they're involved in, or
let's not
whatever.
just talk about sports. We all know that our wives and moms are super great at keeping everything running. Like we got schedules, we got to get out the door, we got homework, you got to sit down. I mean, they're great at it. I hate it. My wife is excellent at it.
I'm with you.
But we get caught up in all those things, and we forget to just spend time with our kids. We forget to just say, hey, how you doing? What are your interests these days? Like, go back to you and I. If we were just starting a relationship, you might have some different views than I do. I'm sure you do.
We do.
Yeah. But I'm never going to tell you how wrong you are if I'm getting to know you. I'm going to listen. I may have some questions, and I'm still going to put my arm around you and go, hey, I care about you.
Yeah.
Like, I relate this to a lot of our families. If my best friend's kid was struggling and came to me and said, hey, Blake, here's what I'm dealing with, and it was some heavy stuff, like drugs, girls, whatever.
Yeah.
And he came to me. First thing I would do would be wrap my arm around him and go, hey, we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing I'd do if it was my own kid. Think about that one.
Yeah.
If your kid had the guts to come home and say, hey, Dad, I'm really struggling with these things, and it's tough. I'd have that lecture on cue. I'd have that index finger pointed.
Yeah.
I would have my anger would be rising, and a lot of other things would kick in. But my first instinct with my own kid wouldn't be to wrap my arms around her and say, hey, let's figure this out.
I love you.
Man.
I love you.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
a sobering thought. You know, I mean,
Very.
because you just realize how wrong you are as a parent. I mean, my entire life, we've told our children, hey, you can come with me to anything. But then if they come to you with like a big problem and you shame them, how does that make them feel the rest of their life, you know?
Makes them not want to come back to you ever again.
And we do that in a lot of ways we don't even realize.
Yeah.
So as our kids are growing and they're really these teen years, they're trying on all these different hats to see what fits, who they are, what they like, what they don't like. And so in the midst of that, there's a lot of learning. And so when let's use the friend thing, because I know that hits home with a lot of people. We don't like this friend, they can't hang out with this people. Well, as a mom, as a dad, if we make comments about a certain type of people, well, this kid's this, or this is that, I don't like this, then if they are in that trying to figure it out and we make a judgment, well, now we've become unsafe. So
Somebody just came to my mind when I was growing up that my parents did that with.
hey, let's bring up a good topic, politics, okay?
You want to talk about politics?
I do not. I
don't either.
I don't, but I'm going to use it as an example. Everybody's got their own thoughts and ideas on politics, especially these days, right? You and I can have a conversation about it. You could have a totally different view, and we can still walk away and be okay.
Right.
But we don't do that with our kids.
That's good. We're going to end this episode here and jump in on the next episode to some more issues with teens and parents, probably mainly parents. But before we head out, can you give the listener some more resources, your website, some books maybe they can read to help if they're struggling in the relationship with their teen right now?
HeartlightMinistries.org, O-R-G. You can go to our site, and even on our site, Parenting Today's Teens is on there. Plenty of books, plenty of resources, podcast. You can get to all that on both those websites.
Great.
And it's great stuff, very practical. Mark, if he's coming to be on here, you'll love it. He's very practical, and it's just easy steps.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us today. If you would, help us, if you've gotten value from this, help us reach more people with the messages. We're going to keep bringing guests on, keep talking about things that are uncomfortable, because this is an uncomfortable topic. This is where we fail in life, is uncomfortable, but it's how we grow. But if you've gotten value from that, leave us a review on iTunes or hit that thumbs up or like button wherever you're listening. We appreciate you being here. Blake, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Excited for the next episode. Go kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.